think maybe the only true miracle that ever happened to me in my life.
A real miracle?
Yeah, it was an authentic miracle for me. It was a healing that took place that I still can't explain. So it was in the year 2000, and I had taken a group of 25 people on a spiritual tour to Assisi. I've made several visits there. In fact, I wrote an entire book called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, based upon the prayer of St. Francis. And I lectured for a couple of hours about it, and we all had visited the places where St. Francis had lived and performed so many of his miracles. The next day, we were going to take a tour to a place called San Damiano, where St. Clare, who was the first female to ever become a part of the Franciscans, lived. And on the third floor there was the bedroom, exactly as it was in the 13th century. There was a young man on that trip. He was 21 years old. His name was John. He was from Pennsylvania. He had cerebral palsy, and he had two very heavy braces on each one of his legs. We were going to go up to the third floor. Now, this was a winding staircase to get up to the third level where St. Clare's bedroom was. So John, in order to be able to go up the steps, he would have to move his leg out like this, you can imagine, and then he would go up the step, and then he'd bring the other one down, and then he'd go up the next step, and he would bring it back because his legs were stiff. But as we started to get into the very narrow part of the staircase, he couldn't, his legs wouldn't go out. He could only go this far, so he couldn't go up. And you can imagine he couldn't go down. It was impossible for him to go down. So there he was stuck. I was ahead of him. And he stopped me and he said, wait, I'm in trouble. I can't go up another step because I can't get my leg out to the side. There's no room and I can't go back down. What are we going to do? And there was a whole row of people behind waiting to go up this very narrow staircase. So you have the picture?
Old people whisper, so be.
So I said to him, without even thinking, John, what I want you to do is just strap yourself on over my back and put your arms around my neck and just lean over and I will carry you up these steps. Now, what I haven't told you is that before we went on this trip, I had done some major damage to this right knee of mine, to a point where I had it examined by several orthopedic physicians, and I was told that there would come a time soon when I would have to have this knee replaced because it was down to bone on bone. So as he got on my back, and now we're talking about 240 pounds or so, he went, I went about 3 steps and I realized that my knee was about to collapse and I was going to go straight down. And I had a quick vision of what the newspapers and the Assisi Daily News were going to say the next morning. Spiritual teacher collapses, bottom of the stairs, 40 people dead. You know, it was like this. And so as my knee started to go down, at that moment, I saw a vision of St. Francis. I had a vision of what he would look like. And he didn't say a word. It was very, very quick. And he just went like this with his hands. In other words, stand up. And suddenly, and I had the fragrance of roses was in there, the same fragrance that I had, remember in the story I told you, in that quantum moment when I had that, the same kind of thing. And I stood up, and I started walking up the steps with him, and my knee just suddenly righted itself. It was fine. Not only did it right itself, but I suddenly had like a burst of energy like I've never had before. And I started walking faster with him on my back. Then I started running. And I ran up all of the stairs. My wife was waiting at the top, and she said, what happened to you, and what are you doing? And everybody else is out of breath. And I said, I had a miracle. I just don't know what happened. And I realized that my knee didn't hurt anymore at all, and I wasn't limping, and I had no pain in it at all. By the way, I've never had any surgery, anything ever done to this knee. It was a healing that had taken place in that moment. Later on, I started to talk about this miracle, but the thing that I did was, when people would ask me, why do you think it happened to you? I would always say, well, why not? I mean, I'm Wayne Dyer, after all. And I've written an entire book about him, and he's...
I deserve a miracle.
Yeah, and it was like, and I really believed that it was like a special sort of thing that came to me. That's what happens, you know, when you get your ego involved in it. And what happened in that moment is that I totally forgot my ego. It wasn't that I'm so grand and so spiritual or that I'm so special. My instantaneous reaction to what John needed was to just reach out to him, and that's when the miracle occurred. In one moment, without thinking, I reached out to a fellow human being in need and forgot about myself. And it was almost as if the door opened, the teachers found me and said, here it is. The best way to have those doors open is to forget about yourself and to reach out and serve. It's always about serving. It's, you know, one of the mistakes so many people make is they just think, well, I'm just going to attract what I want into my life. And one of the things that I really profoundly believe in, you do not attract what you want. You attract what you are.